elopement, weddings, blessings, renewal of vows, just all sorts of lovely wallpaper. Thanks very much. The Designers Guild. Love it. It was my little splash. I nearly went for a mural, but I was like, no, I want really funky wallpaper. Designers Guild. Love it, love it, love it. And peacock means the peacock, where is she? He. Juno was the Roman goddess, and her symbol was a peacock, and she was the protector of marriage and children. So I went for that. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, talking about ceremonies and the sort of theory behind elopement and why do it or why not do it. And there's all sorts of language. There's wedding blessings, there's weddings, there's celebrant-led weddings, there's civil marriages, there's renewal of vows. There's so much. And a lot of people are like, what does it all mean? In a nutshell, the two words, the big difference is wedding and marriage. Marriage is legally binding, wedding is an event. That's it. The wedding, you don't have to be married at your wedding because you can get married before. You can get married after, but venues get a bit funny about it because they don't like the fact that you're having a wedding and are not married. So it's just easier to go down to the registry office, get married, and then have your wedding of choice anywhere. But originally, like I always grew up thinking elopement, Gretna Green, jump on a train, off you go. Or, go to Vegas. And originally that's what it was. It was about a shotgun wedding, so to speak. It was about running away and doing it at short notice. But over the last kind of decade, there's been quite a substantial movement, I guess, in the fact that, times have changed and people are more accommodating or adventurous. And, up until recently, we could just hop on a plane and go travel. That over the sort of last 10 years, it's been a valid choice. And it's been much more of a planned scenario. People choose and plan to then elope rather than go, hey, should we get married? And then go do it. Or they happen to be on holiday in Vegas and happen to go in a chapel. I mean, that, So, yeah, just to kind of open up the conversation. So I know with venues, if my couples want to have just a legally binding marriage, so it's done without any ceremony, they then go and do that, and then they have any ceremony they like with me at the venue. Some venues are not so much now, but we're a bit like, well, what do you mean you're married already? So it's a blessing. And they're like, well, no, it's not a blessing. I am going to wear a dress, and we are going to walk down the aisle, and my dad is going to be there, and we are going to do our rings. And she's not a vicar. It's not a blessing as such. We are having our wedding. But they're two different things. You can go and have your marriage in the registry office in your lunch break because you don't want the fuss. And then, as and when you're ready or as and when you want, if you want a blessing, as in a holy person, someone of the cloth, to bless your marriage, you can have a blessing in a church without them doing the marriage. You can be married before. So you can get married overseas or whatever and then go into a church and have a wedding blessing with all the, white dress down the aisle, whatever you fancy. And you can do a renewal of vows however long from your marriage that you want. So it could be you have a quiet marriage, and then a couple of years on, it's your 5-year, and you quite fancy doing something bigger, or it's your Ruby, you're 40 years on, and you really want to relive a day you had in your imagination, but on the day it didn't go to plan. And all you've got is you just think, that didn't go to plan on that day, and you think, I want to do that again. Or it was so amazing, you're going, will you do that again, please? And they're like, well, maybe give it 40 years because all your friends have paid for this and paid for that and done a hunt, all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't suit everybody. And there's sort of two types of character that tend to go for an elopement, and there'll be like the adventurous type, because it is off the beaten track type of thing to do. And they would love it. They pick an amazing destination. they go to Mexico and have a planned elopement, which is everything they want without all the shenanigans, because they are just adventurous. They've picked up their rucksack, they've gone, they've got even their wedding dress on a hand luggage and gone for that, and that's the adventurous type. Absolutely love an elopement. Then you've got the other type who are the introverts, where the thought of 80 people staring at them for half an hour fills them with dread. So I've got a little fly here, that's why I'm waving. 80 people staring at them for half an hour fills them with utter dread. And then having to wait, I don't know, like an hour and do the small talk and then have the photos and then they're still waiting and then they have to stand up and do a speech and the whole thing. I've had so many couples that have been together for years and years and years. And I'm like, how come why get married now? And as a joke, they're like, oh, because everyone stopped finally asking. But actually it comes down to pressure. They're not the spectacle type. They don't want to be in the room with everyone staring at them. And once that pressure's gone, it might have taken 15 years and 3 kids. Once that pressure's gone, they're then like, oh, yeah, I quite want to do that. I've done 4 surprise weddings at bride's 40th now. It's always the 40th. I don't know, we must get to 40 and go, do you know what? I'm going to do it now. We've all got comfy in our skin. All our parents have gone, right, you are definitely not a child. We know what you want and we'll stand by you and we'll support you. And so actually I did over the last couple of years been doing surprise weddings. So not elopements as such, they're just surprise weddings, but at 40th birthday parties. So there hasn't been any pressure. The brides and the groom have sent out invitations to their friends, given it a sort of theme like think Henley, so everyone goes, oh, I might wear a hat, or think the races, rather than say think wedding, dress up smart. Or what did one of my brides said? She said think picnic in the park. So yeah, you can. It tends to, not exclusive to, tends to appeal. Elopements tend to appeal to either the really adventurous couples or the introverted couples. Not to say it isn't for anybody else. The other people I would say is the opposite, that wouldn't, I would say maybe elopement's not for you, are the ones where they just can't imagine their gang not being with them. They're like, well, what do you mean? I've got my gang. I need my gang with me. Where's my gang? I can't imagine having my wedding without my gang. Don't elope. It's not going to work, because you'll just go, oh, I'm really sad you weren't there. You missed it, and then your friend didn't miss it. I wasn't invited. You disappeared, and that comes with baggage. So the person that loves their gang probably wouldn't want to elope. I mean, it's tricky now because we're in this COVID time of everything, where it might be that they think, do you know what, we can't have a big wedding, we are going to have to elope. But then that's not an elopement. An elopement tends to be a few, like a handful, like 5, like a handful of people. It can be a few more, but then you're sort of moving into a micro wedding. You're like, what's a micro wedding? Like, a micro wedding is just a small wedding. It's not an elopement in that we're disappearing off. You could just have a micro wedding up the road. But I would say, yeah, the type of person that it wouldn't necessarily work for, the sort of secret scurrying kind of wedding. If you're not adventurous, not room for it. If you love your gang with you, elopement's not going to work for you. If you love that sense of sensation, like, did you get any pictures? And oh my god, did you see so and so? And what do you think of it? And you want that banter, and you want that. I don't know, just the sort of attention, I guess. You want everyone to be talking about it. You want to keep talking about it. You want to hear what everyone had to say about it. You feed off that energy from the attention and from what. Oh, send me the link. What did you see? Let's get a. I know you can do a Dropbox and people will send you all their photos. That kind of person probably wouldn't work for an elopement. If the groom is a real lads man, and he's got his boys, and there's the banter, and there's the pranks, and there's the tricks, and you spent 10 years going, oh, that's going to come up at the speeches, blah, 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 and then you disappear off. What you don't want to do is then be like, oh yeah, sorry mate. Um, it's tricky, you know. Some people might then have go for an elopement because they think it's lower on the budget, but actually budget's not a problem. So then what do you want to spend your money on? You know, do you then want to have an amazing honeymoon? There's so many schools of thought. But essentially it's the same thing I always come back to, is find out what you two are about. The marriage is for the two. It's not for everyone to put their oar in. It's not for you to feel like you've let so-and-so down. You know, people will feel cheated. People will 100% feel cheated that you've eloped. What I've found in my experience personally and in my experience professionally, if people haven't told anyone that they are going to elope, it then has a bit of a ripple effect. And people get upset, and then people say things they didn't mean, and then they're hypersensitive because they're worried that it wasn't going to get received well, and it wasn't, and you know, and it all ends in tears, and which was the whole thing they were trying to avoid anyway. So, my advice would be, if you're thinking of eloping, do a planned elope, and tell people. You know, if you've got engaged, and you know, as soon as you get engaged, questions. So, you know, get engaged and have, well, not just, that makes it sound like it's a small thing. It's not a small thing. It's not just have a little chat. Don't have a really big conversation with each other about, well, yes, about marriage. If you're getting married in a church, not all churches do. It's not compulsory. They don't have to do it. Go on the pre-marital wedding course. I would suggest you do. You know, with a celebrant, because I need to get you to know you as a couple. I've got a questionnaire, and you know, I ask some really good deep questions, like why are you doing this? You know, obviously all your mates will be like, oh, congratulations, that's amazing, and no one's going to go, why are you doing this? Whereas I don't know you until we get to know you, so I want to know why are you doing this? And some couples really talk about it and go, the whole thing fills me with dread, I can't bear it. They're like, okay, well, let's not plan a wedding yet. And then you're stuck feeling like you're being wishy-washy because people are saying, have you got a date yet? You're like, oh, no, don't know what we want to do, not sure. You know, before all that skeptical, because then people will bombard you with ideas. You know, get engaged and have a really big chat and say, is a big fat wedding your idea of hell? And a lot of people are like, I just want to be married. I don't want to go through the wedding part. Then the elopement might be for you, or a micro wedding. In the UK, well, in England, you can go to the registry office and have a registrar marry you. And you can, of course you can, have a ceremony around that, and then you're married and you've had a little bit of a wedding because you've had your ceremony. And that's enough for a lot of people. That's totally enough for a lot of people. Most of my clients would have the registration of marriage with the 2x2, as in they go, they bring a witness each, and that's it. There's no family, because if you bring your mum, then I want to bring my mum, and if you're bringing your best mate, I want to bring my best mate. And then you're suddenly on 12, and actually you just had a small wedding. It hasn't been a marriage. A marriage. It's been a bit of a micro wedding. With this sort of COVID situation and the landscape of life that we're in, I'm really sort of on the fence about which way it's going to go. Part of me is like, we won't change our habits. People will, this big thing will happen and it'll have affected people's lives for a minute, and then 5 minutes after we're all let out, everyone's going to be over it and just carry on as before. I kind of hope that doesn't happen. I hope a lot of people are way more mindful. I hope people take deeper, longer breaths over everything. So it might be that the wedding trend of splitting everything happens, that you have the marriage with a micro wedding, so to speak, like the little bit, and then when you get back from honeymoon, have a big reception. You don't even need to call it a wedding blessing, you just have the reception. I've only done a couple of those over the 6 years, where they haven't thought they've wanted a thing, but then the people that haven't been part of the elopement or the wedding abroad have really felt missed out, and then the bride's sort of gets in contact and said, I wasn't going to have a thing and I've booked a reception, it's really clearly just our wedding reception, but actually we do want a thing. I was like, it's fine. You know, how do you see that happening? You know, are you going to wear your dress? Absolutely. Okay, well then we'll just do a blessing if you want, and just say everyone that's here, it's not a religious blessing, but just, you know, everyone wishing you well and giving you hi Clandon, everyone wishing you well and having a jolly knees up is always nice. So it's just seeing what's happening, for me, just to observe, but for anyone that's thinking of weddings or having comments on weddings or any ceremony really, there's, oh, hi Sarah, thanks for logging in. It's making sure as a couple you really genuinely think about what you want, even if you do it in secret, like you say to each other, we've got engaged, does the idea of a wedding fill you with absolute dread, or does it get you really excited? What is it about the wedding that makes you feel really excited? What makes you feel full of dread? And it might be you've got a few things that are non-movers. You might say, do you know what? I want our money to go on an amazing photographer and videographer and drone. I want the whole thing recorded because we've got loads of international friends, but I'm not flying them all over here because they can't, or we haven't got the budget to. We can't cater for everyone. It's going to be too much of a headache. So let's have a really small wedding or a micro wedding, but have it. So, you know, if you try and book a photographer for 4 hours for a bit of a shindig wedding, that's really hard. Photographers will tend to go, I'm a 12-hour shift kind of photographer. But if you were to get a photographer for 4 hours on a big wedding, that's really hard to fit everything in. But if you had a photographer on a micro wedding or an elopement for 4 hours, that's a lot of footage. Because an elopement, you don't tend to do catering and you don't tend to have the party. It's all about the ceremony. So you might decide that actually your 4 things is you want to really invest in a photographer, really invest in the florals, really invest in your outfits and your rings. Obviously make it 5 and top of the list is a celebrant. But say actually it isn't about sharing it to 80 people. It isn't about sharing the party to 120. If that's not you, if you want it to really, really be about you two and not your day fill you with dread and stress, then maybe a micro wedding or elopement is for you. For me, I just bigger the better. I love it. I couldn't imagine doing a wedding without my pals around me and as many people that wanted to come and have a happy day. So, I mean, I had a massive wedding. 420 people at ours. It was huge. But then the reception, because for me, the ceremony was massively important. And I was like, doors are open, anyone can come. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to have the best time. And then after the wedding, we had nibbles and cakes. And then everyone went. And then we had 76 for dinner and disco. And the reception, the speeches, that was a much more intimate affair. But the ceremony was the massive bit, because for me it was all about the ceremony and having everybody there to bring them joy, because it's lovely to share a wedding day with people, because I'm that kind of character. I just wanted to share. I was like, everyone let's have a fab day of loveliness. Whereas my other mates would be like, that was every shade of hell in my book. I can't imagine how you do it. I'm having 3 people and I don't care if they're strangers. You know, it just depends what you want to do. But I guess my message is, if you've got engaged, don't feel any trepidation about the wedding, because there are so many options. But then also don't feel overwhelmed by those options, because they essentially break down into wedding, which is an event, which can be as big or as small as you like. If it's a small wedding, you might want to take it away out of your local neighbourhood and plan it, and then it's an elopement, because it doesn't come with the party afterwards. The elopement is all ceremony. Some companies actually do like a high tea picnic afterwards or something, but generally elopement is ceremony only, with photographer and your officiant for, say, a 3-hour block. Or you can do your marriage and then at some point have a wedding blessing. If you want a religious blessing, then you just book it in the church and say, we're already married, but we do want a blessing, and chat to your vicar about that, or whoever you want to go to for your church, your place of worship. Or you completely split it. You can have your marriage in the registry office with no one and just do you and each other and your witness, go on your honeymoon, and then come back and get everyone to have a party. So it was just sort of say, don't get overwhelmed. There are a few options, but you will get overwhelmed by all those options if you don't have the conversation with each other and then have a conversation, say, with me or an elder, you know, someone that's been there and done that. But don't start asking for opinions of people if you don't really want them. If you're genuinely on the fence, be careful who you ask, because everyone will put in their tuppence. But once you've made your decision, be really confident with it. Because as soon as you say to people, we're eloping, they go, oh, okay. You know, because it's just bad manners to put an opinion. Some people will. You know, it's like when you have a baby and you go, I've called him Digby. Everyone goes, oh, and you're like, I know that's a random name. It's fine. You can say it. But people are less likely to offer their uninvited opinions if you're really confident and give your answer when they say what you're doing with conviction. Then they'll hopefully support you. So, you know, pick my brains, get in contact, don't feel overwhelmed. There is something to fit all. And if there isn't, we make something. So talk to people in the industry. Everyone knows what they're doing, you know. And good luck and congratulations if any of you are engaged. And let me know if you elope, what you're going to do. Anyway, lots of love. Take care. Bye for now.